The definition of 0 as an exponent says for every non-zero number a to the 0 equals 1. In other words, anything that you raise to a power of 0 will equal 1. So if we look at these first three examples, it says simplify each expression. Number 1 says 4 to the 0. Well, the definition says if we raise something to the power of 0, it equals 1. 2 says x to the 0. Same definition, anything to the power of 0 equals 1. In number 3, they're trying to make it look really complicated. We have this whole expression inside the parentheses, 3xy squared to the 0. But if you look at that, you really just have something to the power of 0. So whatever it is, the whole thing just equals 1. The second definition for today's notes is that of a negative exponent. It says apply the definition of negative exponents. For every non-zero number a to the negative n equals 1 over a to the n. In other words, raise it to the power and then take the reciprocal. In number 4, we see 4 to the power of negative 1. That's simply asking us to take 1 over 4 to the first power. Notice when we take the reciprocal, we no longer need the negative exponent. Since 4 to the first is just equal to 4, 4 to the negative first power simply equals 1/4. In number 5, it's a very similar problem, so we're going to do the steps the same way. 4 to the negative second power means the reciprocal of 4 squared. Notice how the power becomes positive when it goes into the denominator. But then 4 squared is something we can actually do, so we need to. And this is equal to 1 over 16. So 4 to the negative second power equals 1/16. X to the negative first means take the reciprocal of x. When we put it in the denominator, we no longer need the negative power, so it's 1 over x to the first, which is really just 1 over x. In problems 7 and 8, we're getting a little more complicated. Notice you have one part of this fraction that has a negative exponent and another part of the fraction that does not have the negative exponent. While there are lots of different ways to think about this, what you want to realize is that this part, the y, has nothing to do with the power and therefore is not going to go anywhere. The x to the negative second power, the negative, that tells us to take the reciprocal, which basically means it belongs in the denominator. Once it gets to the denominator, it has a positive exponent. Now, I can't lose my numerator, so I need to put a 1 to hold the place in the numerator. That's all we can do in that problem because those are not the same base. They can't be combined in any way. Number 8 takes the negative exponent and applies it to the entire fraction. Please remember that this means take the reciprocal. Now, we often think of a reciprocal in terms of 2 has a reciprocal of 1/2 or 3 has a reciprocal of 1/3. But remember, a fraction like 2/3 could also have a reciprocal. The reciprocal of 2/3 is 3/2. We simply make the numerator the denominator and the denominator the numerator. So that's what's going to happen when we see a fraction being raised to the power of -1. The y becomes the numerator, the x becomes the denominator, and that's our answer.